Readipop, music changing lives.
I'm joined with Saytek.
Hello, everyone.
First of all, do you just want to say a bit about you?
So I'm a live act and producer. Do a lot of touring around the world, really. Signed to R&S and Carl Cox's Awesome Soundwave. Yeah, just play live techno.
Nice. And we're here for 909 Day. So, do you remember when you first heard a 909, or at least knew it was a 909?
So I'm sure when I was growing up, I heard it a lot and I didn't know about it. But I got into house and techno really young and electronic music, so I was kind of aware of the 909 quite early on. I was, into music production and stuff. So I think, it was probably when I first heard, an acid house record or, Detroit techno record.
And looking back now, the machine is, 30 years or so old now? 40?
Pushing 40,
40. Yeah, I still think it's the 2000s. But what do you think its legacy for music is?
I mean, I think it's absolutely huge. Between the 808 and the 909 and the 303, of course, I think music as we know it just wouldn't have happened. People say the 808 is kind of the hip hop machine, and the 909 is house and techno. But I think it is more far-reaching than that. I think even if you turn the radio on now, if you listen to 3 or 4 songs, you're likely to hear at least one of the sounds from the 909 in one of those songs.
It might not even be the real 909. It might just be samples or.
Well, it probably is. There's not many people using the real 909. The amount of samples out there, the amount of emulators, but they're all aiming to sound like the 909.
And how do you feel the sequencer itself has shaped music production overall?
I mean, I think, it's the way that we work nowadays. That is shaped the way that electronic music is programmed. And, people shift, especially from 80s and 90s, before people could, program everything on a computer. This was the way that you would program all electronic, or all beats as well. Because, obviously you had different sequencers for, melodic instruments and stuff like that, but all beats. And now, since there's been that massive boom again in hardware, it's just as important today as it was then.
And you've had this machine on, a month or 2 from us now? Has this been your first time playing one?
Actually, the first time playing one with 909 was when I popped into the Readipop studios last year, and I had a little jam on it. That was the first time that that I actually played on one. So apart from that, yeah.
Has anything surprised you? I know you've spoke before about how nothing was syncing, and now that's become your master clock.
I mean, that didn't surprise me, to be honest. It's an old machine, so I wasn't expecting it to, work exactly as it said it would. And what I found really funny is in the manual, it says, put a MIDI cable into the MIDI input and it will sync perfectly. They're the actual words in the manual, and it never did that anyway.
Yeah. So you've used the sounds your whole musical career. What has been the biggest benefit of using the actual machine, and what's been the downfall in comparison?
So the actual machine has, the layout of, the knobs and stuff, and having the tune and, the decay and all that kind of stuff laid out, it becomes an instrument in itself. And when you're using the emulations, you don't really get that. I mean, obviously on my hardware, it's got knobs and faders on it, but, they're not set in stone. So just being forced to work in the 909 way was pretty refreshing, I think.
Is that limitation... So you're going to be performing a piece later at Turtle. Has that limitation changed the way you've written or performed, or?
Well, I've always used a lot of hardware anyway, so I'm kind of used to limitation, and every bit of kit's got its own limitation. But obviously, this is quite an old bit of kit, so it's got a lot of limitations. So one thing I would say is that all the drums are really good, but the kick drum, unprocessed, is not strong enough for techno nowadays, for example. I will be using the kick drum at points, but when I bring in one of my kick drums that I've designed, you can just hear there's a lot more kind of kick and oomph to it.
And you're going to be performing with your usual setup. Has it been difficult integrating this, or have you had to change things around, or how is it working?
So I really, really did not want to use a 909 as the master clock. So I tried every other way of syncing it up to, to my hardware as the slave. I had it. Firstly, I just put a MIDI cable out of my 707 into the back of it. That didn't work. It just froze. And I was like, okay, let's try DIN sync. So I borrowed that sync box from you, and it froze again. So I am using it as a master clock. Fingers crossed, it will run smoothly. I did have it running for about an hour as a master clock in my studio, and it didn't go out of sync. So I
think you'll be all right.
Fingers crossed. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
And so now we did a 303 event as well around the 303, and Saytek used the 303. What have you preferred? I know you found some downfalls with the 303 as well, but overall, what's been your preference?
I mean, they have, there is no preference. They work together. The 303 does acid, and this does drums. You put them together, and you've got acid house, you've got acid techno, you've got all those, foundations of electronic music and the rave scene and everything that came afterwards. So I don't have a favourite. They're both sounds that I use a lot. I do use the 909 sounds more than the 303 sounds because, I do use acid in my sets, but it's not pure acid. So, I use other synthesizers as well, but most of my stuff you will hear, at least one or two 909 drums in there.
Has the workaround been, other than it being the master clock, has the workaround been easier with the 909 than the 303? Yeah,
because the sequencer is just, it's a little bit newer than the 303, so the sequencer just makes more sense. A sequencer on the 303 is mad. I mean, it's great. The reason that people came up with such creative stuff is because they didn't know what they were doing with it. So they're like putting, the way you program it means that, happy accidents happen, whereas this is pretty precise. You know what you're doing. It's easy to program.
Yeah. That's all the questions I have, but I do have a wireless mic, so I'd rather you guys be able to ask Saytek a few questions. So Abby's got the wireless mic just there. If anyone has a question. There you go.
No, I'm just wondering, if you're using it as the master clock, does that mean it doesn't stop for your whole set?
It doesn't stop. It can't stop.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't stop. Whether it does or not, let's see.
Okay, brave.
What inspired you to get into music first?
Well, I mean, I loved, as a kid growing up, I absolutely loved music, and I think for me, music was, I was the kid that had the cassette and I'd listen to the same track like 10 times in a row and all the hairs on the back of my neck would stick up. And then, I was quite young when the rave scene was kicking off, but my mates' older brothers, they were all going raving. They gave me these, cassettes. And I'd listen to like these mixes and I was like, this is just mad, this music. It's so different from anything that's come before. Yeah. And I was quite geeky as well. So I was programming computers and stuff like that. So that idea that you can actually program music as
Okay, so you started programming computers before...
I mean, basic stuff. I mean, I'm talking like I was 8. We're talking about BBC Micro. I was programming BBC Basic, that kind of stuff.
Cool, man. Nice.
Can I follow on from that and say, has it always been electronic music?
I love all different kinds of music. I love so much different music. But for me, electronic music is. I think for the time that I grew up, it was something that was really a big part of our generation. And going out clubbing in the 90s and stuff like that was life changing. And it felt, it was. music that we got that our parents didn't get, you know, and that for me was, you know, at the time as a teenager or whatever was really big. And I think, you know, I love all different kinds of music, but I get the same feeling off listening to a techno track on headphones as I do, you know, listening to an acoustic guitar track. But also, you know, dancing, lost on the dance floor for hours. You know, I love that as well.
Any other questions?
So I think it was my 9th or my 10th birthday. I got a TR-909.
Have you still got it?
No. A lot has happened since then, but we won't go into into those details.
Right, so Saytek is now going to give us a little sneak peek of later. So feel free to come up and have a closer look because he'll be on stage at Turtle. So this is your chance to get a view as to what he's going to do. So yeah, take it away, Saytek. Thank you very much. You've got me excited for Turtle now. So yeah, we've got 30 more minutes here. If you guys just want to head over and play around some more, we're going to pack around, but you guys are free to have a go. Thanks for this chat. It's been great.
It's been fun.
I also want to thank the Biscuit Factory. They let us use this space. They're amazing. So yeah, thanks to the Biscuit Factory. And thanks for you guys coming along. Yeah, Turtle, 8 o'clock onwards till fairly late. Not late, but 11-ish. Yeah, we'll try and push it. Come join us for a party. We've got 3 acts on. It's going to be great. So yeah, thank you everyone. Enjoy. Thanks, Saytek.